Hello, and welcome to Birdeye Live, the show dedicated to the digital transformation of local businesses everywhere. Join me, Justin Meredith, your host and digital marketing evangelist at Birdeye, as we learn from industry experts about the how and the why for taking your business online and claiming the most valuable real estate on the internet, that first page of Google. During this session, we are going to dive into Google search, your business's online reputation, and a lot more. I encourage everyone here to submit your questions in the comment section because we're going to be here to answer them live. The guest that I have today is incredible and really, really smart. So submit your questions. We're going to try our best to answer as many as we can. So if there's anything that you've been struggling with regarding your online reputation, SEO, website, Google, just let us know. Maybe we can help you out. Now, I'm honored to be joined today by SEO expert and the CEO of Greener SEO, Dominik Hussl. Welcome to the show, Dom. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Justin?
I'm good. Finally enjoying some rain down here in Texas. I feel like it's been months since we have anything, and now we're flooding, which is kind of a
Yeah,
nice feeling.
all or
Hopefully,
nothing.
that's kind of the way it is down here. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience in the world of SEO and what sort of verticals you've worked in?
Sure. I started in SEO back in 1996, which is actually predating Google. I've worked in lots of different verticals over the years. Worked with auto companies. I've worked with personal injury attorneys, debt relief, energy companies, restaurants. It just the list goes on and on. Real estate companies, moving companies. Pretty much every vertical possible, I've probably touched it at one point or another. I like to diversify because I think you learn a lot that way, because I can take things from one industry and take it to another industry and get some benefit out of it if maybe nobody's doing that over there. So it gives us a unique perspective, a unique way of doing things that your competition isn't doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a great kind of way to approach it. I think there is some value in specializing maybe in one specific vertical or industry, but kind of like
Absolutely.
you said, there's so much that you can learn. Like something that maybe you were doing for the food industry could help the law industry, or like the legal industry, and helping with
You
their
can't
SEO
do it the
could be.
hard way. You're right. If you specialize, it's easier because you can regurgitate resources.
Mhm.
I can use the same resources over and over again for certain things, where when you don't, you have to go and procure new resources, especially like offsite stuff like links, or trying to find a social media influencer or somebody that you're using to push the marketing. Where if you're specialized, like there's shops out there that only deal in personal injury attorneys, for example, because that's a big market.
Mhm.
Um, and it's easier on that and from that perspective because they've got it all lined up. Um, I just never like doing it that way. I like going out and finding new sources, and then it's just more benefit for everybody because sometimes they just transfer over. And when I do get something in the same vertical, it's like, okay, I've already done it. So I do have those resources as well,
Mhm.
um, plus others. Just I like the diversification myself. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing this longer than Google. I imagine if it was the same thing for the last 26 years, it would probably get a little old. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
diversification also makes it more interesting and, probably more fun for you as well.
It's why I've done this so long, because it's not the same. If I was doing stuff that I did back in the 90s, I'd probably get my websites blacklisted now. That's how much of an evolution there has been. I always tell people I'm the dinosaur that got away, the because so many people that started off with me are not here anymore, because it's constant adaptation,
Mhm.
constant learning, constant evolution. New updates are always coming out. Like we have another one coming out, and just I think it's coming out next week, which is the helpful content update, which should be a pretty big one.
Mhm.
They're targeting content that is really helpful and not just content that's put out for rankings.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna touch on that a little bit later and talk about the Google algorithm and how much more advanced it's getting. But as you were saying, things are evolving and things are constantly changing, even today and even next week, and it will continue to change. So there's always something new to learn when it comes to local SEO or SEO in general. And there's always new things that are that are changing and happening, where you have to learn how to adjust and make sure that your website and your online presence is still standing strong. Because I'm sure there could be one update that could affect an entire website and really hurt it, or even really help it. So you may or may not be aware, but here at Birdeye, we're actually in the middle of our Reviews to Revenue Masterclass webinar series. And it's a 4-part series where we're covering everything that has to do with a business's online reputation and what they can, and we're talking about ways that they can improve it, and what should help with their Google ranking, should help with their star ratings, and basically just overall and strengthen that online reputation so that they can, stand apart from the competition, get chosen first on Google, and so much more. And so for anyone watching, and if you'd like to learn more about that series, it's really, really awesome. We had our first episode on Thursday. That was hosted by my colleague, Rebecca, and she absolutely killed it. We had a panel of 4 people. One was an SEO expert, and then we had 3 other marketing experts from different companies and industries, where they were able to share their views and the way that they were basically able to create strong online reputations for their companies. It's a really, really good series, and we've got 3 more coming up over the next 3 months. So be sure to click the link in the comments. I think that should be coming in any second now, or at least at some point during the live stream. Be sure to register for that. Even if you can't make it live, you can still watch the recording at any time afterwards. So, at worst case, just register for it so you have it on hand, because it's really, really good stuff. So after all of that, we just finished that first installment with a whole panel of experts, and it was awesome. But Dom, from your experience, what does it mean when a business has a strong online reputation?
Reviews are probably one of the biggest factors. Of course, also, if you look at it from a website perspective, it's the state your website is in. Is it maintained? Does it have content? Links that are pointing to it that are authoritative, anything that's from in your space, a governing body or anything like that, are important for Google. But I think reviews are important in more than one way. They're important for Google because they are a ranking variable, but they're also important for anybody that comes across your business on Google, and as they try to decide, do they want to do business with you or not? So I think it's super important to stay on top of them. It's a huge thing for reputation management, of course. I always try to tell people to do everything you can to get your good reviews, because the bad ones will come anyways. It tends to be that people that are not happy are way more motivated than people that are happy. And then when you do get a bad one, it's not the end of the world. Go out and answer it. Don't be defensive. Answer it. See what the problem was. See what you can do to earn the business back. See what you can do to resolve it with the client. And people will see that as they go through and decide, hey, do I want to do business with this guy or not? They'll see that, okay, you care about the clients. You're trying to make it right. And I think that goes a long way to your reputation, because people can see, okay, not everything's perfect. And we all know that. We can't make everybody happy. If you had nothing but 5-star reviews, to me, that's weird. I look at the bad ones as an opportunity to also shine and show that you care about your clients, and to try to find a way to make it right. You're not always going to be able to, but it's just a good policy. And you can sometimes even turn it around, where somebody will come back and be like, hey, they fixed this, and it changes your 1-star into a 4-star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think this relates to a recurring theme that I've talked about a lot. And I think it's one that we're going to touch on quite a bit today. And that is developing trust with Google, but not just with Google, but also with potential customers. When a customer is looking at your reviews, they're basically looking for a reason to either trust you or not trust you. And they're trying to figure out, is this a business that I can trust with my time and my money? And so when people are reading those reviews, everybody is going to get a bad review. But if you are a company that does provide excellent customer service and you do care about your customers, it's just one of those things that, you could have 50 awesome reviews and one angry customer who maybe had a bad day or mistakes were made. And I think most people who are looking online know that. But when they see that, yes, they did, like, this business did receive a bad review, but they did take the time to connect with that customer. They commented, and was, wanted to make an effort to make things right, to me as a potential customer, that would actually instill more trust despite a negative review, because then I can see that that customer actually cares.
Exactly. You take something that's a negative and you turn it into a positive by doing exactly that. And I think to me, it legitimizes your other reviews. Because if everything's a 5-star, I would wonder, is this like friends and family only? Because that's generally not natural. We all know that you're not going to make everybody happy all the time in your business. It's just not really possible. So you're going to have the bad ones. And I just look at those as opportunities to legitimize my good ones and to also shine in my customer service and showing people that, hey, we care about what happened. We want to make it right. What can we do?
Yeah. And at the very least, you should, as a person in that business, you should at least be looking at these as an opportunity to improve. Maybe these negative reviews could identify something in your business that could be better. Maybe
those the negative reviews do affect your trust with Google. And if you think about it from Google's perspective, right? If I give you a ranking, say on pizza place near me, okay, and you have a 3-star rating, I'm sending my customers, the users that are doing that search, to a bad business. Well, that kind of affects me because I'm the go-between that says, hey, these guys deserve to be on this first page to be here. So Google does look at those star ratings and looks at those reviews. And if you get too bad in that situation, it will impact your SEO. It will impact the rankings. There was a time where, and you've probably heard the saying, no marketing is bad marketing. It's like, there's no such thing. But and there was a guy at one time, and I think it's one of the reasons they changed it. This guy made it. He tried to make everyone angry, and they were just sending reviews. He was getting massive reviews because it used to be just reviews, volume. Now it's not just reviews. They need to be good reviews, which totally makes sense because you can't game the system that way. And also, Google wants to make sure that it's sending its customers to someone that is trustworthy.
Oh, sorry about that. I think I might have someone knocking on my door right now. But hopefully they can actually just give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
While I go check on this, Dom, can you go ahead and talk to the audience a little bit about what it means, some ways that a company can develop trust with Google.
Okay.
I'll be right back in just a second.
Sure. You definitely want to, if you're looking at, there's 2 different aspects to local SEO. One is your Google Maps. Okay. So that's the rankings that when you're on your phone and you've got what we call now the 3-pack. And that's generally driven by your Google My Business and the citations, your reviews, and the consistency of your citations as well. That's a big factor. You want to keep them consistent throughout. Your name, address, phone number needs to be the same as much as possible. And then also your website. Your website has a factor on the Maps rankings. So the stronger the website, the more authority it has, the bigger of a proximity Google will give you. Where map rankings are proximity search oriented. So that what that means is if someone is farther away from you, you're not as likely to rank. So if you're within a 1 to 3 mile radius of them, you have a chance of ranking. And if you have a strong website and a strong presence to go along with that, you may get into a 5-mile radius. The other thing that you can do with the website is to actually break out of the proximity search. So to rank in the organics underneath, there's a lot more space there. And I always advocate as much exposure as possible. So you want to do your Google My Business, take care of your reviews, do your citations, and work on ranking in the maps, but also work on your website to rank organically underneath. It does several things. For one, if you don't rank in the maps, you get the opportunity to rank underneath. If you do rank in the maps and they scroll down and they see you again, you're reinforcing that message. They're like, this guy's everywhere. They must be worth talking to. So you get a better opportunity of building the brand and getting a click through into the business, either to the website or maybe they'll call you. but some kind of interaction is more likely. And the organics are strictly driven by the website, optimizing the website for local, and doing what Google needs to know in order to understand where your locations are. So there's some certain things that you can do with that. Maybe we'll get into more details on that later.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Sorry about that. Unscheduled fire inspection at my apartment building today.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they gave me a 2-day gap between 9 and 5. It could be either Monday or Tuesday or Tuesday and Wednesday between 9 and 5. I was like, all right, well,
sounds like the cable repair guy, right?
Yeah, for real. Awesome. So I kind of wanted to rewind. So thank you for holding down the fort while I dealt with that. But I wanted to rewind, and I think we're gonna touch on what you were just talking about here in a bit. But I wanted to rewind and talk about those reviews for a second, because outside of managing them or responding to them and making sure that the prospective customers, can see that you care about them, or at least care about the experience of someone maybe who didn't have an awesome experience with your business, you want to take the steps to right the ship, so to speak. In regards to developing that trust, we did talk about that, but what does it mean to develop that trust with Google? And I think maybe you might have touched on it while I was away.
Okay.
But what does that really mean? What does it mean to have Google trust you?
Basically, trust means better rankings at the end of the day. The more they trust you, the more visibility they're going to give you, the more traffic you're going to end up with, the more keywords you're going to be able to rank on is basically it. And also you'll get a bigger area. The proximity search will expand a little bit for you where it won't for someone else. So because you can literally optimize a Google My Business without a website. You don't have to have a website to do that. But I think you're cutting yourself short to do that, because if you actually build a website and take care of it and also optimize it as well, you're getting maximum exposure. It's the GMB for any local business should be a must. Mm-hmm. You should do that regardless, because it's not very expensive to do that, or to even have someone handle it for you. Getting into the website and building up the website can be a little bit more costly, and you may need a guy like me to do it, or you can get someone in-house to handle it for you. So that's where sometimes it's cost prohibitive, where people won't do both. But the ideal situation is to really do both of those. And when you look at links, if you know that there's like industry sites that are governing bodies, you want links from those guys. You want those guys linking to you. Mm-hmm. So if you were an attorney, if the website of the bar in your state linked to you, that would be a huge thing. Chambers of commerce in your local area are another good one, because it actually helps solidify that, okay, they're in the Chamber of Commerce. Google sees all of that. And that starts to build up the trust in the business. Mm-hmm. The consistency of your citations is a big thing, like your opening hours, your phone number, your address, your name as well. But that seems to be less important than the other ones, because in their mind, it makes sense. If you cared about your business, wouldn't you make sure that your phone number and your address is consistent throughout everywhere if people are trying to reach you? Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. And you're taking care of your reviews and answering your reviews, I think that's not so much of a Google trust signal, but I think it's just something that you should do. Mm-hmm. I recommend you at least do the bad ones. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to do them all, but really the right idea is to interact. That's a client interaction that you can take advantage of and build that rapport with, just by saying, hey, thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate the review, and I'm glad you had a good experience. Come see us again, or what have you. If it's bad, we definitely want to do it.
Definitely. And that kind of reminds me of the Google algorithm starting to understand context and knowing that those strong links, those credible sources matter. And now you can't just stuff a bunch of information on a page with nothing else linking to it or nothing else showing, like, hey, we actually have sources for this.
So I see we have a question. Do you want me to answer these now, or do you want to do that at the end?
Let me see. I just saw that one pop up. Cool. Yeah, we can go ahead and answer this one.
Okay.
So, what's your opinion of the state of local search slash review industry? Is Yelp still worth the investment? The is Google My Business and submitting info to big data aggregators still a good starting strategy?
I am not a huge Yelp advocate. I will say that. So it's going to be a little biased. I think it's worth having that presence because it is one of the big ones that Google looks at, like Foursquare, Yelp, LinkedIn, Facebook. You know, those are big citation sources. They're also social medias, of course, but those are places Google looks at that are big, where they want to see that consistency. Yelp is one of those. Me personally, I've never been a believer in investing in Yelp as far as advertising there. But I think you should have the property. On the data aggregators, yes, that's still a good starting strategy because those data aggregators feed so many citation sources. It's kind of like a really good bang for the buck. And most places will do that pretty reasonably. It's not crazy expensive either. So set up your GMB and do big data aggregators. I would do that at a minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and making sure, kind of as you were saying earlier, making sure all of those are accurate, consistent.
Yeah.
You know.
So here's what I do. However I set up my GMB, that is basically my metric for all citations. I will pull exactly that data, and that data will get fed into the big data aggregators and everybody else. Because I figure from Google's perspective, whose data is the most important? Theirs. So why would I not make sure that it's consistent? Exactly same name, same address, same message, same hours. I just do that across the board. So it's kind of all consistent.
Mm-hmm. And if you have a lot of locations, that could be a lot more difficult, especially to manage the reviews, the information. If hours are different, and then it's not even just Google. There's also listings for different industries and different websites and browsers all over the internet, which does make something like Birdeye really helpful because you can manage all of those listings for all of those locations for any of those websites all from one dashboard. I remember in terms of just managing like a sheer number of locations, I did a webinar a few months back with someone from a auto repair oil change company. And I think they have like over 80 locations. And I think over the last 2 years, they had brought in close to maybe over 16,000 reviews, but they only needed one person to manage them all because they were able to do all of their listings, manage all of the reviews, responding to them, sending out requests, all from one place with Birdeye, which was really, really cool.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's a lot for one person.
Yeah. And I didn't even know that. Whenever we had booked her for the webinar and we were doing our intro call, I asked her, I was like, how many people are actually on your team that do this? And she was like, it's just me. And I was blown away. I was like, I didn't even I work at Birdeye. I didn't even know you could do that. That's insane.
Yeah.
And so, those types of tools, they really do help you manage. And, kind of going along the lines of responding to reviews, there's automated templates that allow you to, if there's a 5-star or 4-star or above, you can have a list of different responses so that they seem more personalized, especially if you're a company that does get a lot, to help stay on top of that. Because like we were talking about earlier, it does help with that, building trust with potential customers. And then with a negative review, you can have it flagged so that you can have someone address it immediately, which also is a big deal because responding to reviews, especially the negative ones, if you wait a week, it's kind of, the point's kind of moot. They probably already forgotten about it. Like they got it out of their system and then they're kind of done with it, and maybe even forgotten what really kind of happened. So making sure to respond quickly and immediately is also extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on. And so after we've talked about reviews, we've talked about developing that trust with Google, and something that you and I talked about during our first initial conversation when we were talking about this live stream is that proximity search and making sure that, like I think I remember you were telling me a story about how there was a client who was upset because they weren't ranking, but they were 25 miles from their location. Whereas if they were to actually search for it within 5 miles or 10 miles, they were able to get to it. So, and that's something that's that's something that relates in search to the searcher and not the business that's trying to rank in search. What do you see in that realm? How much of the search algorithm do you think is going to play in part, or is going to relate to the searcher versus the business? Because I feel like things are starting to get much more customized and much more tailored to a specific person and what their needs are and what Google thinks that would be their best interest, and not just the overall, just if anyone's searching.
Yeah. Well, you have everything in Google these days is personalized search. Even if you go into your incognito window, it's still personalized to your search preferences. So you'll see it. You'll start looking for something or go to a website a lot, and all of a sudden you'll search for something else and they will present that website because they just know that that's where you go. So they figured that's the solution. So you really don't have non-personalized search anymore. That's been gone a long time. We use third-party APIs to try to get something close to that when we try to give a ranking report to clients. But you as a user, you're never going to get a pure result anymore because they see what you're doing. And if you're logged into your Gmail or any Google property, it's even more that way. You're just feeding them your information. So as they give you results, you will see results that are different from mine and from Justin's and the next person and so on. The proximity search more or less works in the sense of like, if you're not close by, it makes no sense because say like the auto repair or oil change place is a great example. Would I drive 40 miles to get my oil change? No, I'm looking for an oil change place probably in a 1 to 3 mile radius. And that's their thinking behind it, which makes a lot of sense, especially in some of the cities in the USA. Like I'm in Houston, it's huge. You could be in Houston and it's an hour drive. So yeah, you're not looking for a service or even a pizza place, if it's not within that proximity of 1 to 5 miles. So they're not going to show it. So if you as the user goes and does a search for pizza near me and you're 25 miles away from the location that you usually eat your pizza at, they're going to show you the places close by because that's what logic kind of dictates. But it's always been skewed this way. Probably it's been like this for, I would say, 10 years, where it's been more personalized search is what they call it.
Yeah. And that makes it even more important for businesses to excel at the things that they can control. Because now with these personalized searches, there could be, there might be less opportunity for your business to rank because you're not part of that personalization. So being able to control the things that you can control and do them well, like managing your online reputation in the sense of your GMB, your website, your social media presence, that stuff is even more important because if you're not doing that, there's hardly little to no chance you're going to show up online anymore because it's just so competitive. I mean, especially because everybody now is fighting for these spots, and the spots are getting smaller with the increase of Google Ads and other things like that. Like the real estate's getting smaller and more valuable.
Well, if you look at Google Maps, for example, there was a time when we had like almost a full 10 listings, like 7, right? And then when we went to a 6-pack, and now we're at a 3-pack with ads. So they're squeezing that space even more so. And all organics have been getting squeezed forever and a day because Google is not a nonprofit organization. It's a for-profit business. So it's in their best interest to serve ads along with the organic listings because that's monetarily driven for them. So if you look at the way Google looks now versus the way it looked 10 years ago, you'd be shocked because there's so many more ads now at the top, on the sides, on the bottom, even sometimes intermixed in where it's just a little thing that says ad. So, and I think that trend is going to continue for sure. So that 3-pack is prime real estate. And then, yes, you have a view more button. So if you're in the top 10, you will still get some traffic for sure. But it's the extra effort that people are not making. They're going to go with they're going to try those top 3 first. They're going to get the lion's share. If they're unhappy with that, they will probably go to view more and look at the rest. But that's top 3 spots are your biggest drivers for organic traffic, period. It's the same way in the organic results.
Yeah, it's something that I think businesses definitely need to pay attention to and work on making sure that they can be prepared for that. And, and even so, with retargeting, those ads are even more personalized for the searcher, which makes them even harder to not click on if you're competing against them if you're organic competing against these super, super personalized ads.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to the website side of things, and I know while I was doing my fire inspection, you might have talked a little bit about the website and how you can strengthen that for SEO and things like that, and developing that trust with Google. But when Google, what is Google doing when they're analyzing? I hear people say the term crawl your website a lot. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Basically, when they're crawling it, what they're doing is indexing it, which is kind of the same thing. They're going out to your website and examining all your documents.
Mm-hmm.
But they're looking at a lot of other factors these days as well. They're looking at the site speed. They're looking, is it mobile friendly? They're looking for certain things that should be in your navigation. Like, do you have an about us page? Do you have a terms and services page? Do you have a privacy policy? If you're a service oriented, if you're like a business that doesn't sell a product online, then terms and services is not as important, and they know that. But they're looking for some things that basically are factors of what do real businesses do, right? And if you look at all your bigger businesses, bigger enterprises, they all have an about us page. They all have a privacy policy. They all have a terms and conditions page. So those are pages you should have, because they're crawling it to look at that. They're looking at the site speed because they want good user experience. And when a site doesn't load fast, user experience is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they're tending to not favor websites like that unless there's not much of a choice. Like if everybody's slow and you're slow, okay, but everyone's tending to be fast because the people are realizing that site speed is a ranking variable. So they're building their websites to load quickly, and everything is now mobile index first. So mobile is the big one that you want to focus on as far as that goes. You want to make sure it's fast, it's loading good, it's legible, because it's a lot harder than desktop. Desktop is much easier to render and deal with than mobile. So if you get mobile in line, desktop just falls into line on that level. And then just local signals, like optimizing your title tags, to where you are, adding some service area pages, especially if you have multiple locations. Make multiple service area pages, talk about the location, where it's at, what's the history of that part of town, put a little nice informative piece together. Maybe some other things, maybe you're close to a museum, mention that, something else that's noteworthy in the area, and embed your Google map. So if when you go to Google Maps and you do a search for your business, you'll see there's a share. And if you click on the share, there's a little thing that says embed, and it literally lets you embed the map. So you can get, if you guys are doing it in-house, you probably need to get someone that knows a little bit of coding. It doesn't require much to just stick it in the footer. Put it on your service area pages if you have multiple locations, because it just reinforces that signal. You want to reinforce your location and where you are to Google as much as possible so they get it. I kind of think of like, I'm going to hit them over the head with it over and over and over again. So it's very clear. This is the location that we're at. And, if we have multiples, these are all of our locations and where we are and what those locations are about.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine, a good example of that is if you were to search for an oil change place and you see it up on your phone or your Google Maps and you click on a website to see what services they offer, and then it just takes you to their corporate page, nothing with that specific location. You're like, well, how do I get in touch with these people? I know where they are, but like, how do I do this? You need to have those specific pages lead to those specific locations.
And that actually brings me to a good point. Each and every one of your locations should have its own GMB, should be running its own reviews. And also, when you take the GMB and you point it back to your website, don't point it at the home page. Point it at that service area page. It's the most relevant page to that location. You don't want to point it to your homepage and then people get lost in the sauce. They're like, I don't know, I don't see this location here, and they leave. No, you want to instantly give them that recognition. Ah, yeah, this is the spot. Here's their phone number, or they want to know some information. So you want to make sure that each and every one has a GMB, and you have a corresponding page on your website. Mm-hmm. That's ideal.
Yeah, and I think that this all I talk about it so much now, but it's all centers back to trust, where businesses are trying to have Google trust them to put them on the top of the results. But in reality, it's Google trying to develop trust with its users to use their search engine. If Google loses the trust of its users, people won't use Google. Exactly. I use it because I trust that it will give me the best results for what I need.
It's exactly why they have to work on making sure that they can trust you, mm-hmm. Because it reflects on their reputation. If they give you bad results that are irrelevant, or they continuously send you to businesses that are not real businesses. There was a time when people would just set up virtual offices all over the place. They'd have 20 locations with no one there, because that was helping them build all these GMBs, and it was helping them break out of proximity search and rank everywhere. Well, Google got wise to that. They almost know where every virtual office is in the country. And if you're in one, they will not approve you. Now, they will, but you're going to have to prove a lot of things. Like, mm-hmm. You're going to have to actually take pictures there. There needs to be signage there. There needs to be, they want to see that you actually have a presence there every day. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a real location, not someplace people go and just look at the door and go, what is this? Right? Because it's also, those are tactics that fly by nights businesses that have, ripped people off, have used that. So they don't want to be associated with that. The bad side of that is, if you're a small business owner working out of your house, it really dings you. Unless you want to make your address public, which most of us don't, because you don't want someone knocking on your door, at 2 a.m. So it really restricts you. You kind of really need to get an office, even if it's a small space, a real location, even if it's just a sign on the door, something that they know that's a real business. You'll go a lot farther. You don't have to submit you can actually blank it out if you want to. Like, if you were a home business, you're not going to give your location. So you can say, don't show it on Google, and they will still show the proximity of your business. But from what I've seen, your results are not going to be good. Mm-hmm. When you hide it, your results are not as good as the guy that actually has a shop that is in your area. He's going to get preference. Yeah. And as tight as the space is these days, unless you're doing something very out of the box, or you're in the middle of nowhere where you're going to rank automatically. You don't have to do anything because there is no one else. So you win by default. But if you're in any metro area, you really got to have a location. It's a big change. I remember when I first started my first business, I started a business online with $150. That's it. That's what the merchant account cost. And we killed it for a long time. But then all these changes started to come into play where you really need to have a location. I can't emphasize that enough. For maps, organics is easier, but maps without a location is almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that's like that goes back to having people trust Google. If there's nowhere to people,
right.
For Google to see you.
Like the oil shop. Well, if I do it out of my garage, how much of a business am I really, right? When something goes sideways, do I have insurance for that?
Yeah.
No, I just sound like a shade tree mechanic, and we don't want to present those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, this reminds me of, actually, I think it might've been the very first webinar that I did with Birdeye. And I was interviewing an SEO agency owner named Joey Randazzo. And he told me that Google is really looking for one thing when it comes to its businesses. And it's for, you are who you say you are, you do what you say you do, and you're located where you say you're located.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great guideline because that speaks right into the NAP, name, address, phone number, right? Um, and that is definitely a big thing with them. There's such a thing as EAT. If you've looked at stuff online, you've probably come across it's like expertise, authority, and trust. That's what they're looking for. And then there's your verticals are different too, right? Because you have verticals that they call your money or your life, and they get looked at way more for authority and trust than other ones. A guy changing oil, they're not gonna impose the same rules on, because the level of expertise required is not as big. But a doctor, a lawyer, anything medical, finance, those are things that they look at very closely, because those are big things for people, right? You get the wrong finance guy, you lose your livelihood, or you take the wrong medical advice, that can have all these things can have serious impacts. So they look at trust and expertise very closely in those verticals. That's why, like, if you're a lawyer, you need to be on the bar website. You need to be on all the trade websites that exist in your space, so they know, like, this guy's a legitimate lawyer. He's got a license. Those are important things in those fields. And pizza shops, not as important, but you still need the trust. It's just the bar is not as high.
Yeah. It looks like we just got another question, and they're asking, when you are already number one with reviews in your area, what's next? And this is for a physical therapy practice.
Okay. Well, for one, I look at it this way. If you're ahead, stay ahead. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting the reviews, because this way you're kind of the gorilla in the room. You're the one everybody else has to compete with. So I would stay on that track, continue to work on my reviews. So that way, when the next person tries to come and bump you, it's hard to overcome. You're all of a sudden the guy with 1,000 reviews, and I'm just starting in the space and I have 5.
Something that I've mentioned a few times in webinars and other live streams is that it's not just enough to get a lot of reviews, but you have to get them consistently.
Yeah.
Because reviews,
you just reminded me of something, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
One of the things that's kind of changed with reviews is it's good to get the reviews with keywords in it. And I don't mean stuff it, and I don't mean try to game your clients. But if you're a physical therapist and they say, hey, I came to see Joey and we did a physical therapy session on my legs and this and that, and it was great. It's better than great guys, awesome service, because it does not give Google an idea of what the experience was, right? Mm-hmm. If you can get your clients, and maybe that's a good place for you to go next, is get your clients to describe what you do in a little bit more detail when you ask for the review. Say, hey, can you give us a review and describe your physical therapy experience with us? Mm-hmm. So that way they will naturally try to put some of those words in there, and it'll become even more relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that, it's one of those things where reviews don't have a super long life cycle. And I've got a couple of things. First, actually, I want to rewind. What you were saying about the keywords in reviews is really, really important, because I don't know. I think it might have been 2 days ago. I was reading some reviews on Google Maps, or I was going through it and looking for a place to eat. And now when you're looking at the reviews, they can actually have keywords that show pricing or long wait. They'll actually have keywords of the most common things that people leave reviews about, whether it be good or bad. So having this, you want to have excellent service be a keyword, and see that there's 100 reviews that say you provided excellent customer service, or, the specific burger was really good, or anything like that. And then on the other side of that, where I was saying that reviews have a short lifespan, and it's because they do. I think anything older than 3 to 6 months might be a little obsolete, especially depending on the industry, for sure. I know in the food industry, things move so fast and things change so much. They could have awesome reviews 6 months ago, but then the last month, maybe new management or something else took over and it's gone down the tank. Those reviews from the last month matter way more than the good ones 6 months ago.
It's funny, I have a person that just approached me on exactly what you're saying. I kind of approached them because I know the business, and I was like, listen, I know you took this over from someone else and you have a 3-star rating and you have a great place. And they're like, well, we're frustrated because the previous management really screwed it up and people were, they have a bad taste in their mouth on the business. Well, what do we do? So I've been working with them to kind of get an idea of like, here's a strategy, like solicit your good reviews. People like me that are happy, ask us for a review, and start to overcome it. Mm-hmm. They were good enough to go in and explain and say, hey, they just didn't do it right. I was like, your answers are not good. It's like, that's not us anymore. That you're being adversarial instead of saying, hey, I'm sorry you had a bad experience here, but that was the previous owners. And we've rectified this situation that you were so upset about. Hey, let me give you a coupon and $10 off or whatever, and come try us again. That would have been the better approach than saying, well, that wasn't us. You're just being defensive. Mm-hmm. But that does happen. And I think you just have to go in and work on overcoming what was there before. And like you said, people will go look at it and say, oh, this was 6 months ago. The problem is if you don't get any new reviews, your 6-month review is relevant. Okay. If you're getting reviews, your 6-month review is not relevant because it's going to be down at the bottom under 20 other ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going back to what you were saying when we were answering the audience member's question of staying ahead, the best way to do that is to ask all of your customers for a review. All of them. And the easiest way to do that is to automate it, especially if you're a business that does get a ton of customers per day, or if you have a ton of locations like the oil change where they've got 100 cars coming through the garage every day for 80 locations. That's a lot of customers. And so being able to automate that process so that as soon as that transaction is over and that experience is fresh in their minds, they get that text or email or whatever it may be, it goes a long way. Especially like you said at the very beginning, is that the angry people seem to be the most motivated to leave a review. So you're going to have to find a way to get your happy customers to leave one. And the best way to do that is by asking.
Absolutely. And there's so many methods now anyways. You can do it with text. You can do it with emails. If you're using a service is really the way to go. Mm-hmm. It's so much easier than doing it on your own. Yeah. Because you don't have the tools.
Yeah. I mean, trying to train every single person who interacts with a customer at your business to consistently ask for reviews is a very, 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 very tall order. And so being able to have that automated to where you don't even have to worry about it because every customer is getting a request takes a lot of stress and weight off your shoulders trying to make sure that you stay ahead when you do have that good ranking. So if anyone else has any questions, I think we're going to wrap up here in just a second, but I want to give everyone a chance to ask any other lingering questions or anything like that. But Dominik, thank you so much for joining us. I'm confident that you and I are going to be talking again soon. This was a great live stream. I think outside of my impromptu fire inspection, I had I think it went really well. And as a reminder, for anyone tuning in right now, or maybe even on demand or watching the recording later, because this is going to stay on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, be sure to click the link to those masterclass series that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. Like I said, it's the first of 4 episodes that we've done. We had it just on Thursday with an awesome panel of experts from different industries like home services, health and beauty, and one other one. And we also had a really awesome SEO expert who really knows this stuff, and he was able to provide his insights on how using customer feedback can help your business grow. It was a really good conversation. And then also be sure to sign up for the future installments of the series. We have one coming up next month called Reviews to Revenue, Reputation 101. I'll be diving into a discussion with a lady from Core Dental, and we'll be talking about all the tips on how to create the best possible online presence for your business, especially if you have a lot of locations, and how you can get your SEO and everything like that optimized and your online reputation as strong as it can be. And for taking your business, your local business online, making it as strong as it can be on Google, showing up on that first page of Google, which is the most valuable real estate, as we've talked about, and it's only getting more valuable. Check out birdeye.com and watch a free demo. And before I forget, be sure to follow us here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we have coming out. One of my favorite things about this, about Birdeye and about our social media is that we don't try to hit you with a bunch of sales stuff and a bunch of sales pitches. It's really thought leadership, because our goal is to help businesses get better online and provide the best possible customer experience. And that's really what we focus on. And that's why with these live streams, with our blogs, and with all of our social media posts that we even put out pretty much 4 or 5 times a day, it's all focused on helping you guys learn how to be the best that you can be online. Dominik, thank you again. I'm definitely going to email you because I want to have you back on. This was a great discussion.
I very much enjoyed it. And anybody with any questions, I'm happy to answer. If it's SEO, I've been around for a long time, so I can answer pretty much most things. And if I can't, I'll tell you. I don't know. But I'll probably know next time because I'll go research it.
That's great. And if you're here, I'll make sure that Dominik is tagged in the caption so you can connect with him and ask him any questions as well as myself. But until next time, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you later.
Bye.